This is Quantitative Techniques in Management, MAN-811, Module 2, Study Session 1, Introduction to Decision Making. The expected duration of this study session is 1 week. Introduction. If the aim of quantitative techniques is to aid the manager in making better decisions, it is necessary for anyone who wishes to understand quantitative techniques to be conversant with the decision-making process. The entire realm of management is pervaded by decision-making. In fact, the role of decision-making in management is so pervasive that some writers have defined management simply as decision-making. But what exactly is decision-making? The first part of this session will discuss the scientific approach to decision-making extensively, while the second part will be exploring the decision-making situations. Expected learning outcomes. When you have studied this unit, you should be able to discuss the scientific approach to decision-making and the steps involved using this approach, ascertain the different possible kinds of situations under which decisions can be made, and you should be able to examine the appropriate quantitative technique to apply given any decision situation. The scientific or objective approach to decision-making. The scientific or objective approach to decision-making. In the early stages of the development of management, decision-making was mainly subjective. This is an irrational subjective approach that relies mainly on the manager's experience, instincts, guesswork, and majority opinion. However, in the 20th century, around 1921, Frederick Winslow Taylor, the father of scientific management, revolutionized the practice of management by successfully developing and propagating scientific approach to decision-making. Managerial decision-making is a process whereby management, when confronted by a problem, selects a specific course of action from all the alternative courses of action. There are two basic approaches to decision-making, subjective and objective. The scientific approach is an objective approach to decision-making. Managers today need a systematic and objective approach to decision-making because business and environment in which it functions are far more complex than in the past, and the cost of making mistakes is becoming graver. Generally, if you are adopting the scientific approach to decision-making, you will be required to take the following steps when faced with a decision situation. 1. Define the problem. 2. Identify the alternatives. 3. Determine the decision criteria. 4. Evaluate the alternatives. And 5. Select the best alternative. Step 1. Define the problem. The first step in the decision-making process is to define the problem. Every decision-making process is triggered by a problem. The word problem in this context implies threats and opportunities emanating from the environment. In the context of our discussion, a threat is any development that could possibly impair an organization's ability to achieve its objectives. For instance, emergence of strong competitor, a new hostile government law, a new technology that renders us obsolete, and so on. Whereas an opportunity is any development that creates a favorable business environment for the achievement of an organization's objectives. Examples of such include favorable government law, economic boom, and favorable change of taste. When a threat or an opportunity is perceived, an in-depth and thorough investigation is carried out on such a problem in order to understand its real nature and to be able to define it in specific terms. Most often, the problem definition is accompanied by an expression of the desired solution to the problem. Let us take a look at a question. What are the factors that influence decisions when the subjective approach is used? Answer. When the subjective approach is used in decision-making, the final decision is usually influenced by the decision-maker's experience, instinct, guesswork, and majority opinion. Step 2. Identify the alternatives. A well-specified objective makes it easier to screen the alternatives in order to choose the best. When the problem has been defined and the objective specified, the next step is to seek and identify the alternative courses of action that could lead to the achievement of the desired objective. The decision-making process is undertaken only when the nature of the problem permits choice among alternative solutions. If one and only solution exists for a given problem, then the question of decision making does not arise. The search for alternative courses of action involves the acquisition of information concerning the environment and the opportunities it presents. Supposing a firm, after investigations, discovered and defined its problems as dwindling sales, and to solve this problem, it has set as its objective to increase sales by 30% in the next 2 years. 3 of the numerous ways of achieving this objective are: 1. Reduce the price of existing product. 2. Introduce new products in an existing market. And 3. Develop new markets for existing products. Step 3. Determine the decision criteria. The next step after identification of alternatives is that of determination of the decision-making criteria that will be used to evaluate the alternatives. For some problems, evaluation of the alternative is based on one criterion. Such problems are known as single criterion decisions, while decision problems that involve more than one criterion is referred to as multi-criteria decision problems. For our problem, the firm may choose to evaluate the alternatives based on their profit contributions only, that is, single criterion. This implies that the alternative that offers the highest net profits to the firm will be the one to be adopted. Step 4. Evaluate and select. Then comes the evaluation stage. Essentially, this step involves a comparison of the cost and benefits associated with each alternative. Accurate data is needed to make this step successful. When qualitative factors are involved, they are also carefully considered at this stage. The final and the ultimate stage in the decision-making process is that of selection of the best alternative. The selection, of course, is based on the criterion or criteria established in an earlier step. For our illustration problem, if after matching the cost with the benefits associated with each of the alternatives, it is found out, for instance, that alternative 2 yields the highest net benefit, if it is found out that alternative 2 yields the highest net benefit, it is adopted. At this point, the actual decision has been taken, thereby completing the decision-making process. Classification of decision situations. As an individual, even in non-formal setting, decision-making situations are not always the same. According to Vasomvi and Spira, situations under which decisions are made can be divided into 3 as follows. 1. Certainty and uncertainty. 2. Static and dynamic situations. 3. Nature of opponent. Let us examine the various situations. Decisions under uncertainty, where the event or state of nature that will occur is not known for sure, but probability estimates can be assigned to the possible outcomes, and decision-making under certainty, where all the facts are known. Decisions under uncertainty is when the event or state of nature that will occur is not known for sure, but probability estimates can be assigned to the possible outcomes. Whereas decision-making under certainty is a situation where all the facts are known. When a firm is trying to decide the amount to invest in government securities and the type of government securities to invest in, it is a good example of decision-making under certainty. The rates of interest are fixed and government rarely defaults. On the other hand, a decision to invest in a machine that will be used in vending a new brand of ice cream is decision-making under uncertainty because the relevant facts are not known. The investor can never know the exact quantity that will be sold and the price at which the market will accept the product. Static decision situations and dynamic decision situations. A static decision is that which is made once and for only one time period. Decision on whether or not to drop an existing line of product by a firm is a good example of a static decision situation. A dynamic decision, on the other hand, is a sequence of interrelated decisions over several time periods. For instance, if a firm wants to introduce a new product and decides to do a market research first and then, depending on the result of the research, decide to either build a big plant now or to build a small plant now and expand the size of the plant in the next 5 years as demand expands. This depicts a dynamic decision situation. Decision trees are very useful in analyzing dynamic decisions. Decisions can also be classified in terms of the nature of the opponent. The opponent could be either nature or a thinking opponent. For a firm that is prospecting for tin, gold, or oil, the opponent is nature. The outcome will depend on whether nature has endowed the area or land with that which the firm is seeking for or not. On the other hand, a firm that is trying to set its price or to determine the amount to spend on advertising faces thinking opponents, that is, competitors. Let us take a look at a question. What is the difference between a situation of risk and a situation of uncertainty? Answer. The major difference between a situation of risk and a situation of uncertainty is that in a situation of risk, the decision maker knows the probabilities of the occurrence of the various outcomes, enabling him to use probabilistic techniques, while in a situation of uncertainty, the probability of occurrence of the different outcomes are not known. Classification of decision situations. Having acquainted yourself with the various conditions surrounding decision making, let us get a clear view of the various decision situations. According to Lee et al., decision situations are into 4 categories. 1. Certainty. 2. Risk. 3. Uncertainty. 4. Conflict. According to them, a state of certainty exists when all the information required to make a decision are known and available. Condition of risk exists when perfect information is not available, but the probability that certain outcomes will occur can be estimated. Uncertainty situation refers to a situation where the probabilities of occurrences in a decision situation are not known, and a conflict situation exists when the interests of 2 or more decision makers are in conflict. The classification of decision situations, as stated above, is rather arbitrary and they sometimes overlap. For instance, decision in which the opponent is nature is decision under uncertainty, and decision when the opponent is a thinking being is decision under conflict. Static decisions could be either certainty or uncertainty situations. Dynamic decisions are mostly decision under uncertainty. Since Lee et al.'s classification is easier to comprehend and any decision situation can neatly fit into any of the 4 classes, we will adopt their classification. Therefore, decision situations are 1. Certainty, 2. Risk, 3. Uncertainty, and 4. Conflict. Decision theory is primarily concerned with decisions under risk, uncertainty, and conflict. Decision making under certainty makes use of deterministic models such as linear programming, transportation model, and assignment model. For decisions under situations or conditions of risk, the concept of mathematical expectation and expected value is applied. Expected value in this case will be expected gain or expected loss. In situation of uncertainty, a decision maker has an array of decision criteria such as maximax, minimax regret, and so on to choose from. These will be discussed as we proceed. Decision makers rely on the theory of games to analyze decisions on the situation of conflict. Box 1.1. That the appropriate quantitative technique to apply given the different situations are as follows. 1. Certainty. Deterministic models such as linear programming, transportation model, and so on. 2. Risk. Mathematical expectation like EMV or EOL. 3. Uncertainty. Decision rules such as maximum, maximax, minimax, regret. Decision rules such as maximin, maximax, minimax, minimax regret, Laplace, and Howitz. 4. Conflict, theory of games. More on decision-making theory can be found from the link below. http://worthyLab.wrthy.tamu.edu/cours/01_edwards_1954.pdf. More on decision-making theory can be found from the link below. More on decision-making theory can be found in this link, http:// worthylab.tamu.edu/courses. That is worthyLab.tamu.edu/courses/01_Edwards_1954.pdf. Let us summarize this session. At the end of the study session, you have learned the following: that managerial decision making is a process whereby management, when confronted by a problem, selects a specific course of action from all the alternative courses of action. You have also learned the two basic approaches to decision making, which are objective, that is scientific, and the subjective approach. And you have learned that the situation under which decisions are made can be classified as certainty, uncertainty, static or dynamic, and nature of opponents. Self-assessment questions. Congratulations on your successful completion of this study session. To ascertain how well you have grasped the learning outcomes, attempt the following self-assessment exercises. Question 1. Give 2 examples of a situation of conflict and explain why such situations could be considered as situations of conflict. Question 2. Is there any relationship or similarity between the 2 classifications of decisions that you have studied? Explain if your answer is yes. You have come to the end of study session 1.